One thing I've been trying to do over the last few months on my channel is to show everybody why housing is so unaffordable and prove to you that it's not sustainable. Basically because things cannot continue to go up at this pace with where people's incomes are at. We know that already from previous videos and different graphs and charts I've shown you guys what people's incomes are versus what the actual home prices are and what the payments are and how much money someone would need to make to qualify just to even buy homes at today's prices. The vast majority of people cannot afford it. But this one really takes the cake, because when I saw this today, this is the ultimate proof that homes are not going to continue going up forever, guys. It's just not going to happen, because look at this. U.S. home values now are growing faster than the national debt. So we know how bad and how out of control the national debt is, right? We all know that. It recently just topped $34 trillion and is going nowhere but up, right? But the only thing more insane than that is the value of the U.S. housing market right now. In 2023, it went up an additional $2 trillion to now it's at a total of $47.5 trillion as of the end of 2023. So basically, if we sold all the homes in America, we could easily pay off our national debt and have several $trillion left over to do whatever we want with. Then we could really all own nothing and be happy because we'd be debt free. Well, really, I just think this is a joke. I mean, when I saw this, I couldn't believe it. And when you really look at, you know, the fact that our homes now are worth more than our national debt, I think that's a testament to how much money people have been pouring into the housing market, especially on the institutional side as well, that has helped fuel this whole thing. And that's not going to work forever, guys. And we know that more and more people are starting to go broke and not able to pay bills, and you're seeing a lot of delinquencies across all forms of debt. So we know that this cycle cannot really continue unless corporations and foreigners come in and continue to buy everything, because that's the only way that this continues to move forward, that the average person no longer buys a house, essentially. But the thing I'm not sure I agree with here is when they talk about stories like this, they mention things like, well, America's homeowners are sitting pretty, you know, they're holding a massive amount of housing wealth, you know, despite the lack of demand from buyers, and now the supply shortage is preventing home prices from going down, is what they continue to say. So I'm not really sure how this makes somebody lucky, because think about this for a second. If you have your home equity, say it doubled, maybe even tripled, whatever the case is, it went up by a lot, right? That happened. Well, now what do you do with that extra equity? The only way you can access it is to borrow against the house, right? You have to do that unless you're willing to sell. Check it out. We got a garage or yard sale here behind us. Take your pick. So think about this, guys. If you take the loan against your property, you now have a lien against your house that for whatever reason, if you can't pay back, you can lose your home. So you're literally jeopardizing your housing security by borrowing against the house anytime you do that, number one. In order to actually realize all this home equity gains that people have gotten, you actually need to sell the house. And then what happens? You're going to have Uncle Sam come in. They're going to take their capital gains portion of the taxes, of course, right off the top. And whatever's left over is going to go to you. But now you're left with a couple decisions. Do I buy another house and spend all this money I just earned on this house? Because you sold an expensive house, now you had to buy an expensive house, right? Well, most people aren't going to want to do that, which is why you're still seeing a lot of people not wanting to sell, because a lot of people really do want to sell, but they can't because that's their situation, right? If they take all these earnings off the table, they have nowhere to put them because they're going to be jumping into a mortgage that's going to be twice as expensive as they have right now, and their monthly payment's probably going to go up by $1,000 a month, if not more in many cases. So the only real winner in this situation are people who can sell the house now, take that windfall of earnings and stick it into an investment where it's earning a decent return and you're simultaneously living cheaper than you were before. If you can pull that off, then you can definitely win in this housing market and take advantage of this situation. But very few people do that, because the problem is when most people sell, they want to move up to a bigger and nicer house. But even a lot of the baby boomers right now who want to sell and downsize into a smaller house, they would actually have to pay more money to move into a smaller house than the larger house they have right now, just because they bought it so long ago, their mortgage payment is so low, or maybe they have no mortgage at all, and now they're moving into the phase of life where they're on a fixed income, and you're looking at taking on a mortgage that costs double or triple of what your previous house did for a smaller place. So it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense for someone like that to sell. And unfortunately, those people are the ones who are hanging on to the vast majority of the real estate right now. Here we have a house for sale, fairly new listing. They just put it up a few days ago for $4.5 million. They bought it back in 2013 for $1.95 million. So now, in the span of 10 years, it's apparently worth double. But I guess that's not as bad as some of the other listings we see where they want to charge double in just 1 year. Property tax bill here, $29,000 a year. The other big problem I see too is there's still this huge promise that mortgage rates are going to be in like the low fives by the end of this year, guys. Have you seen a Fed rate cut so far this year? We just entered March, because I haven't seen one. And so this is something that continues to be promised that's going to happen, but it's not happening. And all these people in the real estate industry are continuing to tell you, oh, don't worry, because by the end of the year you're going to see a big reduction in mortgage rates, so that's going to save us all. Even though the mortgage rates aren't really the problem, because let's face it, guys, if prices stay the same or continue to go up, as the forecasters say will happen, any reduction in mortgage rates is going to be negligible. It's going to do nothing for the average person and your monthly budget and affordability aspect of things. And so many people are continuing to bank on Fed rate cuts this year, when I'm starting to see more and more economists say that there might be no Fed rate cuts this year due to how robust and how strong the economy is. So everybody out there who believes all this stuff we're hearing about the economy and how great it is, the Fed might be drinking that Kool-Aid as well, and they're going to say, hey, well, if things are going so great, we don't need to cut rates. It's that simple. And so far, it looks like that's the path they're on. I can't say that's for sure what's going to happen, but there's a growing subset of economists out there that think that's where things are headed, and I agree. And here's another problem, guys. Even though inflation has supposedly been coming down, and then it kind of shot back up here, housing is still a huge part of the inflation equation, and this could actually prevent the Fed's goal of reaching 2% inflation for a very long time. So if that actually becomes the case, then we don't really know when there's going to be any Fed rate cuts in the future, because housing is that one stubborn category that just won't go down. The cost of shelter as of January of 2024 increased 6% for the year, guys. So that's 6% year over year. And I would argue that that is a very modest estimate of how much it's actually gone up. We all know that housing is everybody's largest monthly expense, and as long as that continues to be very expensive, I don't think we can call this economy healthy regardless of what other figures come out of it. And it's not my imagination that housing is overvalued either, because Fitch, they just came out with their latest report on the US housing market, and they're saying that 91% of the housing market is overvalued right now. So that's basically the whole damn pie. They're saying right now homes are about 11.1% overvalued as of the third quarter of 2023, but 11.1% seems like a kind of low estimate, because just think about this for a second. If home prices across the board drop by 11%, let's say everywhere, right? They just take 11% right off the top, and mortgage rates remain where they're at today, could you afford to buy one? If the answer is no, then this overvaluation estimate is wrong. And so once again, my argument is, how can the prices continue to go up as wages are not keeping up? Well, I think the answer so far has been what I mentioned earlier. You have a combination of a lot of different things. We have corporations that seemingly have endless pockets that can buy up housing in areas that they prefer, that they think are going to be good return on investment opportunities. You have mom and pop investors that have a lot of wealth right now because they already own real estate, and they can tap into that real estate to buy more real estate. And then you also have foreigners, foreign investment, right? You have a lot of foreigners that come and buy real estate in this country. We allow it, it's not illegal, and it kind of leaves the average person left in the dust at the end of the day, because the average person's wage just isn't keeping up with the cost of the housing. So theoretically, home prices can continue to go up forever as long as those players in the market who are buying up this housing right now continue to purchase. And oh, I forgot about cash buyers, because cash buyers have been a very large segment of home purchases over the past couple of years as well. So you're talking just wealthy people in general that have a lot of money here in this country that can afford to buy regardless of what the price or interest rates are. Now, because of this overvaluation that Fitch says we have, they think that price growth is going to slow down to anywhere between 0 to 3% here in 2024, and we're likely to sustain the current high prices throughout the year. And that could be true. I think that could be true, guys. Unless something changes, I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't be true. I do think this housing market is due for a massive crash, correction, whatever you want to call it. But there needs to be an initial trigger, something that forces that to happen, because it's not just going to happen all by itself. You know, something's going to have to snap in order for us to see major price declines. And I think, and I continue to think, that that's going to be unemployment. I think when the economy starts to turn for the worse and you start to see the unemployment numbers really start to head up, that's when we're going to see more pain in the real estate market. And here's another thing that just continues to help home prices stay high, because I see more stories like this, like, can you use your home equity to buy a second home? So this is something that's actively being promoted by the news and by mortgage agencies right now, of course, because they want you to go into debt against your home, because that's how they make money ultimately. If you take out a loan against your property, there's going to be origination fees, closing fees in some cases, commissions, whatever. People are going to get paid if you do this. So it's in their best interest to say, yeah, go ahead and borrow some money against your house, because that's good for us. We need that business right now, so do it. But they're saying that the average homeowner right now can tap into about $200,000 worth of home equity, which can be used to pay off high interest rate debt, make home repairs, or buy a second home. I don't think you should be doing any of that stuff with your home equity, but hey, it's not my money. I don't care what you do. And here's what somebody from the mortgage business says. They say home equity is a perfect way to purchase a second home. Of course they're going to say that. Why? Because there's commissions to be earned. So they say the best thing to do is you take out a home equity loan, which is a fixed rate second mortgage that provides funding based on how much equity the owner has in their home. That's according to Rocket Mortgage. With a home equity loan, homeowners can access lower cost funding as compared to personal unsecured loans without refinancing their mortgage. And they say that the benefits to this are, it's just like having cash, guys. You know, you borrow against the house, you get all this money, and now you can use it for whatever you want, even if it's for buying a second home, whatever it might be. Don't worry about any of the potential consequences from borrowing money against your house. Worry about that later when the bill comes. Oh, and they say that the interest might be tax deductible. So that's another reason why you want to take out a massive lien against your home, because you might save a few extra dollars each year on your tax return. Now this one actually makes some sort of sense, at least. They say, well, you could also use the money to buy a second home and turn it into an income stream and a rental property. But except the problem is you can't make any money on rental properties today, especially if you're going to be financing them. Unless you have so much equity in your home, you can pull it all out and it's enough to buy a property for cash where you can actually turn this place into a legitimate cash flowing property. This isn't going to work. And also, here's the other thing, guys, that nobody wants to talk about. If you need to borrow equity against your current home to buy a second home, because a second home is like a luxury, right? It's like another place I get to go to in the world. A lot of people down here in Florida have second homes and they live up in the Midwest or they live in the Northeast and they come here for the winter, right? They have that second home. That's a luxury. That's not a necessity that anybody needs. And so if you can truly afford that luxury, chances are you don't actually need to borrow against your current home. You're just going to have the money to go ahead and buy that second home without borrowing against your current home. It's just like if you're going to buy your first house right now and you're putting down the maximum down payment that you can, getting the lowest possible interest rate that you can, and your monthly payment you can just barely afford. That's a huge red flag that you really can't afford this purchase. Same thing goes for buying a second home. If you have to pull equity from a current property to make the purchase, you probably can't afford it. Not only that, but now you're just extra leveraged against your first home. So that could potentially put your place that you live in jeopardy if for some reason you can't pay for the second home. It's like setting up dominoes, right? The dominoes are set up to fall right now, and we're just waiting for the first one to get tipped over. I feel like that's the situation that we're currently in. And by the way, if we continue going down this path where housing does continue to get more expensive, let's say all the housing bulls are right and all these people with the money just keep buying all the houses, right? You have people with cash, rich foreigners, big corporations, mom and pop landlords, they just keep sucking up all the real estate. Everything that comes on the market, they just buy it. The prices continue going higher and higher and higher, right? Well, here's a couple things that are gonna happen from that. Number one, the payments on the houses are going to get more expensive, and those people are going to be charging ever increasing amounts of rent in order to offset their costs for owning that extremely expensive real estate. And in the end, it's going to come to a point where nobody can even afford rent, because renting is still far cheaper than buying a house right now. And if that happens, there would have to be a massive government intervention. And they seem to intervene with everything else in our lives, so you can guarantee that they will intervene on this as well. And that's when they're likely to start the universal basic income or something ridiculous like that in order to try to help everybody continue to pay. And guess what that will do? That will put us in this never-ending inflation doom loop where the cost of everything will continually to explode, including the cost of housing. They'll have to continue pumping out more and more money to people just to keep people off the streets, and it will be a never-ending cycle that will burn this country to the ground. That's what I think is going to happen if they do that. Which is why it's kind of just baffling to me that they don't want to just let it correct on its own, because that's the much healthier and much more long-term sustainable solution, is just to kind of let things correct now, stop with all the stimulus programs, giving people a leg up to buy a home and giving people free down payments and 1% down mortgages and all this crap that they do. If they just got rid of that and just let the free market do its work, I think eventually that would work itself out. It would make the prices come down, guys. Who knows to where, how much, I have no idea. But all I know is that every time the government throws money at anything, it gets more expensive. And that's what you're seeing happening with housing, because people can get a 1% down payment mortgage, or they can get free down payment money, or these grants where people can get a huge giftable loan, essentially, where you get a huge down payment for the property that if you stay in it for long enough, you don't have to pay it back. So there's all these different incentives that people can get that make housing ultimately more expensive. And if they want to keep playing that game, then they're going to have to continually keep throwing more and more money at it. Just think of it like how California handles the homeless problem. This is a great analogy, because you see them continuing to throw now billions of dollars at the homeless problem per year, and what's happening? The homeless problem is exploding over there. It's getting worse and worse and worse. So we already can see the future of how something like this goes. If they continue throwing money at it, you can guarantee it's going to continue to get more expensive. And that seems to be the choice that they're making for now. So who knows, guys? Maybe everybody that says that home prices will never go down and will go up forever, maybe that will be true for the combination of all these things I just said, because now our houses are even worth more than our national debt. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.